And let me ask you a couple general questions. What's the role of the economic bottom line in ethical decision making?
There are a lot of gray areas. There are a lot of gray areas.
Right.
I know our lawyers used to say, Bob, if you don't want anybody to know about it, don't ever write it down. Now, why all these people put it on emails, I don't know. But that just, I used to think when you press the delete button, it was gone. It's not gone. And I don't know why people aren't aware that that's not a good thing. So I don't know. Ethics, I think until you are in that spot, you really don't know for sure what you do. I mean, you think you do, but if your boss is saying one thing, and you say, that ain't right, boss, what's going to happen?
Right.
Yeah, so PR has a problem in a sense because it's driven more by the legal department than the marketing department. And you're there to advise.
Right. You're the counselor.
But you're not necessarily the one that makes the final decision.
Mm-hmm. All right. Did you have a direct line? Hold on. Let's drink some water. We'll cut this part out.
Yeah. Direct line.
Did you have a direct line to the CEO in your positions?
I did, but you know, at one time, toward the end of my Western Electric career, they suddenly created executive vice presidents. And then, so instead of reporting directly to the president, I reported to an executive vice president who had personnel, PR, and I don't know, maybe one or two other, accounting. And unfortunately, he wasn't one of my favorites. And he felt he wanted to make certain decisions and didn't want me talking to certain people up there. So that's why I say PR frequently has a problem because they do not always let you go directly. They put you, maybe you're under legal or some other thing. And that happened to me after I had a direct line
That would
at
be
Western
difficult.
Electric. And I didn't like it.
What about when you went to AT&T?
Well, AT&T, you know, I worked with Ed Block basically, but I know a couple of times Charlie Brown, who was the chairman, I was in there to talk to him on different things. I didn't make that initiative, he did. Let's say there wasn't any blockage, but I had no reason normally to go directly to him because that was more of the operations kind of the business, and I wasn't that directly involved in some of that stuff. That was Ed's job, if there was anybody.
What was the biggest challenge that you faced in your career?
I think that last thing I mentioned, probably. I mean, after having access to the top person and the division heads, the senior vice presidents of a couple of the major thing, and then I have a boss coming in and say, you can't talk to him anymore. I would take several of my crew over to talk to him because he would tell me what was going on, what their plans were for the next 6 months, you might say. And I didn't have that access anymore. I get it informally maybe, but I mean, I couldn't sit down with 2 or 3 of staff people. So I'd say that was the biggest problem that I ever had in PR, definitely. So going over to AT&T was sort of a breath of fresh air in that regard. I could,
Right.
well, I was asked to set certain things up, and I just did it, you know. The foundation, things of that nature.
see here. What time, what do we have here? I should have worn a watch.
Right after.
Okay, all right. Okay, I saw that.
One of the more interesting things I did, junior achievement, you may have heard of junior
Oh,
achievement.
yes.
We had one in New York, and it wasn't doing too well, and so New York Tel guy who was involved got a hold of me and said, Bob, could you get involved? So I went over there and ended up becoming president of junior achievement in New York, because he said if the Bell system doesn't take it over, it's liable not to survive. So I did it for a year or two, and then New York Tel vice president did it for a couple of years, not a PR man in this case. And then Frank Carey, who was the chairman of IBM, took over. He could do more than any of us because he was the top man. But things like that were interesting. And
Yeah.
but I got involved with the Public Relations Society. I got certified, you know, whichever that's. I don't think that was worth a lot. But you had on there a question, I remember on there about, do you call it communications or public relations?
Right.
My own feeling is public relations is a better term, because that's what we're trying to do. Communication, you know, that could be newsletters, it could be all kinds of little things. But everybody seems to be moving toward communication. But to me, public relations says it's public and it's out there, and that's what Arthur Page was talking about too.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with the press, with the public? You know, the Bell system always did a lot of work before rate cases to make sure the public understood the problem. We did a lot of that in our PR department when it was going to be bargaining, labor bargaining. We put some good stories in our house organs about how well people were doing that were in the bargaining unit. And, you know, it was just a good way to keep people posted on, you know, we're not starving to death, we're doing well, and bargaining's coming up. We didn't say anything about that, but it all tied together a little bit because there was a public feeling about it, or a employee feeling. You know, we had 210,000 employees at Western Electric at its height, which is a lot of folks.
That is.
Yeah. In fact, at one time when I was treasurer of the company, we had the 5th largest pension fund in the United States because of all these people. And I enjoyed that. That sort of was good training, because we'd meet with the people that were investing our pension money, the bankers, people like that. So you learn a lot about dealing with people that way. So even though you didn't have a PR background in a sense, that was always very helpful, I think.
Right.